Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's CA Identity Suite Upgrade Process webcast presented by Itamar from our product management team. Just one note, we'll take questions throughout the session. You can put those in the Q&A tab. We'll get to those at the end and answer as many as we can. Just be sure when you put your question in that you ask of everyone so we're sure to see it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Itamar.
Thank you, Chris. You guys hear me okay?
We do.
All right. So, welcome. Happy Friday, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Seems some familiar faces on the list here, so welcome. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Itamar Budin. I am the product manager for the CA Identity Suite. I'm working for CA for the last 3 years. Before that, I was in IDM Logic. We're the company behind Identity Portal. I've been involved with CA products for almost 10 years now, doing everything from consulting, architecture, to supporting, and now I am part of the product management team. So welcome to the upgrade process presentation. And the reason we're making this presentation today is that we want to kind of go through the process of explaining what's going on in the current world of Identity Suite. What are the options? What are the end of service notifications? What are the options you have available for you when you start thinking about upgrading from your current version of one of the point products, whether it's going to be Identity Manager, Identity Governance, or Identity Portal, what type of options you have available for you when you think about it. A little bit of disclaimer, we are going to show some futuristic features that are in development. They are not representing any finished product, but just our kind of blueprint of what we think that can help you in migration or upgrade to the existing solution. The agenda today is I'm going to cover a little bit of our end of service announcement. This is very important because I want to make sure that every single one of you understand where it is in terms of which version they're running. We're going to talk about the new features for Identity Suite 14.2 that was released in April. We're going to talk about the upgrade paths we have for the Identity Suite. And then we're going to do a little bit of more drill down in terms of prerequisite to migration to the virtual appliance and upgrade of the virtual appliance, and also talk about a standalone solution, which is the majority of our solution. And of course, we're going to have ample time for Q&A in the end. So let's talk about the end of service announcement. So I'm going to go through our product line end of service announcement. And before we start, I want to make sure that, and this is kind of an open question for everyone, and you can answer in the end, is, are you getting the end of service notification? When we release a version, we are as part of the release cadence, we actually present an end of service date, which is usually 3 years from the date of the release. And during the 3 years, we're going to be able to provide support for the solution as long as the product lifecycle is still there. Once the product goes at the end of service, we are not able to provide support for that version. And our expectation is that during those 3 years, you will be able to go and upgrade your current solution to the latest version. In fact, from our perspective, the best practice is to create a cadence to at least once a year to move into the latest and greatest of what we're offering. And we do understand that this is not a simple process, especially moving from a very, very old solution to our newest solution. But our goal is to make your life easier and make this upgrade as painless as possible to allow you to go and enjoy the latest version and all the offering we offer in those versions. So let's go through the end of service. So Identity Suite, which only got released in version 14.0. Again, this is the combination of the Identity Manager, Identity Governance, Identity Portal, the virtual appliance. This was only released in the 14.0 back in November 2016. As you can see, if you're running one of those versions, you have the end of service date on the right. For Identity Manager, if you're still running the old 12.6 version of the solution, you can see that the 12.6.8, which is the latest version that was released in April 2016, the end of service date is April 2019. And if you're running any version before that, 12.6 service pack 4 to 7, the end of service date is coming up in October. If you're running any version that is actually below that version, 12.6, 3, 2, 1, 12.5, those are already end of service. And our expectation is that you're going to be in the process of upgrading migration. And as part of this presentation, we're going to talk about the different aspect of what it means to upgrade, what it is required, and what not. But if you see your version on this list, we ask you to reach out to us through support, through your account manager, through your services contact, and make sure you are either registering for extended support, which we're going to talk in a moment, or you have a process in place to go and upgrade to the latest version. Identity governance, same deal. If you're running any of those red version, end of service is coming up in October. And finally, the identity portal, which is, if you're running one of the red, again, October is the date. So let's talk about a little bit of our fixed strategy. So what it means to be end of service, what does it mean to be running a supported version to the life cycle of that version over the 3 years that we support. So during that time, we either release service pack or community releases, we release community patches on a regular basis, and also release hotfixes on a per request. So if you're running the latest version, let's say you just upgrade to 14.2. So you're running now on the latest version, you're benefiting from the latest features, latest code base, and now what you want to do is to keep maintaining your solution. So for that, we have a release cadence of either service pack or community release. If you're running 12.6, you're going to see the community release, the CRs. We are no longer releasing CRs for the specific version 14 because, as opposed to 12.6, where the actually second decimal point was the actual service pack, we're not doing that anymore. So we're going to see service packs. So for example, we released back for 14.0. We have a service pack 1 for 14.0, but we have a regular release of CRs for the 14.1 and 14.2. And those CP, community patches are for the specific point product. So you're going to have a community patch for Identity Manager running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you have a community patch for Identity Governance, Identity Portal, Virtual Appliance has its own community patches, whether it's actually operational community patches or actually operating system community patches. And of course, there's the hotfix. If, God forbid, you have a problem, you reach out to support. Support determine this is an actual bug. We in the engineering group work together and provide you with an hotfix. And that hotfix always going to be rolled into the next community patch. So again, let me go over this again. We have a service pack, much more rare occurrence. We will try to release service pack as much as we can. Those are like any other distribution, so you have an installer and everything. But in most cases, you're going to have a community patch for the point product, and in some cases, you get an hotfix, and those hotfix will be rolled into the community patch. You have a link here that actually covers our fixed strategy. You can go in detail and read it. So let's talk about Identity Suite 14.2, which is the latest version. Again, was released in May this year. And we're going to go over a little bit of the new features and new stuff we can get out of running the solution. So first and most, so starting from version 14, we're now offering a virtual appliance in 2 flavors. One is the virtual appliance running in OVA, the VMware format, and an AMI, the AWS EC2 format. This solution allows you, as opposed to the standalone where you have to go in, you set up your hardware, software, set up a meeting with your own IT department, you sit down, you run the installers, you have the configuration, it takes days, weeks, months, depending on the complexity. For the virtual appliance, it takes minutes. Meaning, once you deploy the virtual appliance and you provide the IP address and whatever you need to do to communicate to it, you go in, you select which component it's going to run. It's going to run either one of those Identity Suite components, Identity Manager, Identity Portal, Identity Governance, the CA directory, the provisioning directory, the connector servers. Everything is running on that one box. You can still distribute it, but you can run everything in one box. You connect the solution to your own database, enterprise database solution. you will have to provide it, whether it's going to be RDS, AWS RDS, or your own Oracle MS SQL running on your own infrastructure. And once you deploy, the system is up and running in minutes. Up and running meaning it's configured, it's cluster aware. If you deploy 2 or more virtual appliance, it's already clustered together. All the settings, everything is done for you, so you can go in to the management console, start configuring, and do whatever you need to do to make the solution work. In 14.2, we actually added the FIPS support. As you might know, we already had some FIPS support in the point products, but now for the OVA, we also have FIPS support. So for example, if you're migrating from an old FIPS-enabled solution, you can use the same key to deploy FIPS support for the virtual appliance. That FIPS support is not just for the point product. We actually certify the entire operating system based on the FIPS certification. We also added a backup and restore feature built into the solution, so you will not need to use your own third-party kind of tool set on top of the virtual appliance, which is good for CI/CD. And for those of you who are not aware of the virtual appliance, it can reduce your license cost because we, as CA, provide you with the operating system, we provide you with the application server, we provide you with the directory and the support around it. As I say, there's no installer, which means that when you go in and upgrade, you upload a file to the virtual appliance, you run a command, and a few minutes later, everything is upgraded. And it's you have a built-in solution in DevOps for monitoring and log collection. So when we talk about upgrade, because that is the topic for today, when you think about it, even if you're running the latest version, let's say you're running now 14.1, you've been happy, now you say 14.2 came out, and you like one of the new features. And you say, you know what, I'm running a standalone solution, and I want to upgrade. So usually what happens, you download the installer, you set up a downtime, you set up your backup, we go through a process in a later stage, and you run the installer, everything is fine, and now you're running 14.2. But you have to go through a process of backup and restore and make sure the software is up to date and your hardware is up to date. There's a lot of prerequisite and manual work that still need to be done. That's not the case in the virtual appliance. Every time we released a new version, so 14.2 came out, it came with an upgrade package for 14.1. You upload the file to the virtual appliance, you make sure you have enough disk space, you run the upgrade, the script takes care of everything. Upgrading the operating system, applying the latest patches, upgrading the point products, apply every fix that needs to be done into the solution. And again, a few minutes, you're up and running, and you go back to you do the test and everything, verification that the upgrade was done. So that's for the virtual appliance. So another thing we're trying to do for the 14.2 is this is a kind of a roadmap kind of item. Our goal is to try to move as many of the current UI tasks you have today into the identity portal. So for example, for this version, the 14.2, we took a stab and moved everything that is related to the management and administration of identity governance, universes, connectors, data sources, campaigns, certification template. Everything is now moved into the identity portal. So an administrator with deployed identity suite with identity portal and identity governance does not need to go through 2 sets of administrations, UIs, to go and configure what needs to be done. It's set up once identity portal is connected to the identity governance. The only thing you really need to do is just go in, and as you can see in the screenshot, and I hope you can see it, you can actually go and configure everything you were used to configure in the identity governance, now in the identity portal. In our roadmap, in our what we want to see in the future is to move more and more admin type interfaces from the point products into the portal. So you're going to have one modernized UI, centralized UI, that you can do all the action you need instead of maintaining those 2 type of accesses and maintain. So let's go back to the virtual appliance. And what I wanted to do is just to go and show you a little bit, for those of you who did not see the virtual appliance, just how easy it is. So as I mentioned, you go and select once you deploy the virtual appliance, you select your deployment type. You can deploy demo, sandbox, non-production, and production. The difference between those versions you see on the screen is how much memory is going to be allocated. One of the major things we did in the last few versions is to actually do the performance tuning for you. So in the past, if you had to go and work against a point product like WebSphere, once you install our solution, you had to go through a performance tuning guide, whether the services guide or a communities guide gave you, and you have to go through this all motion. We took it to the next level, and we actually other than actually providing with an official performance guide you can find in the documentation, we also made the changes through the installers and the way we configure the virtual appliance. So the kind of bare minimum and basic configuration object will be done for you, whether it's each size, whether it's thread count, other properties we collected over the years to make the system much more usable and ready to go once you go in. So you select your solution, you connect to a database. Again, I have to emphasize that there is a demo version of the virtual appliance we provide with the Oracle Express. This is only for demo purposes. It should not be used for any type of deployment on anything. This is just for demos. If you want just to play around with this, you select, so you connect to your database, you select which component you're going to deploy, you drag and drop, you can add more servers, more machines, you can distribute the load with the machine, the components against the machine. There's some specific items that you will have to keep to say, for example, the user store must run with the provisioning server because with the directory server because you have to run the directory on top of it. The same goes for the provisioning server and provision directory. It's all in the help section of the solution. So once you deploy, you click deploy, and you can see on the screen that everything goes in and it's deploying for you. And once it's up and running, you're gonna have this very nice distributed view of the virtual appliance, how the health, how much memory is being used out of maximum. If the service is up and running, usable links, you don't need to think about, oh, what is the management console URL for identity manager? Here it is. So you get all this necessary links, and the more version we release, you're gonna get more and more information. For now, it doesn't show in the screenshot, but you can see the actual usage of this IP size and utilization of directory out of the allocated DSA, etc., etc. So let's say you go in and you deploy the solution the first time. You want to play around with this. And so one of the things that we struggle is to say, okay, so I deploy the solution. What do I do with this right now? So for that, we actually came up with a solution called Deployment Express. And the Deployment Express is a marketplace for use cases where we, CA, developed a bunch of use cases ready to go based on best practices and experience we collected over the years. And using a very nice marketplace solution, you can go and select, I want a create user from HR feed for a bulk loader, done. You click on a button, you click on deploy, we go and create all the objects you need, the basic object you need to make the use case work, meaning you're gonna have a task, you're gonna have a screen, you're gonna have role, you're gonna have a bulk dust definition, you might have one simple PX, you're also going to have a task set in Identity Portal, model, a profile, a screen. Everything is being done for you as a basic startup, so to speak, so you can go in and configure your own use cases. So that's the base of it. The nice feature we actually introduced in 14.2 is the ability for you to build your own template. So let's say you deploy a virtual appliance or your solution. And now you build your solution. It's very complicated. You have 15 PXs, 20 screens, 400 admin tasks, that many roles, that many moving pieces in the identity portal, and you want to collect those into one use case because you want to move them from, like, for example, from your development environment into a QA environment. Using Deployment Express, you actually can go and collect and accumulate those into one use case, deploy this into the next version environment, and deploy it through the Deployment Express. So this is how the Deployment Express marketplace looks like. This is available now if you own the virtual appliance and you deploy it. We actually provided an explanation for each use case, a short movie that demonstrates the capabilities of the use case, and this can be grown for your own usage to add your own use cases. If you have a vendor, you want to build a centralized a use case for your entire customer base, you can do that for this solution and deploy it here. And this makes much easier go-to-market kind of solution for you. Another view of the Deployment Express. And once you deploy, as I said, it takes care of everything that you need to do in order to deploy the object on the point product. Let's pause for a second. So this is we talked up and down. We talked about the 14.2. We talked about the virtual appliance, but we all know that the majority of customers today are still using a standalone. And for those of you who don't know, the virtual appliance, in order to deploy it, one of the key features we introduce in the virtual appliance is the fact that there is unified schema, meaning that because we provide the CA directory user store, we provide the out-of-the-box environment, we provide everything, what we try to do is to generate a unified schema, meaning we go in and we build a base schema, how the user schema looks like. We do allow extension. That's probably going to question that's come up. We do allow you to extend it using an auxiliary object class, but we control it, meaning that if you are running a solution against a directory that is its own object class directory, even against a database or any other solution, when you have your own schema, you will need to go and migrate this into our own schema, do kind of an attribute mapping between the old system and the new system. One of the things we are working on at the moment, it's a kind of closed beta, is a tool called Migration Express. And the idea behind the Migration Express is very simple. From our position is that we understand that from technical perspective, it's very difficult to make this migration processes. So if you had to do this manually, you had to build a TDI type of solution that go read information from one end, make the mapping, then generate an LD file, or feed directly to the directory. That's a process you have to develop and not necessarily have the time or skills to do that. On the other end, you have your own business logic. So let's talk about Identity Manager. So Identity Manager, you have the roles, tasks, PX, everything is being controlled and built based on your schema. You build a solution. So some of you will use well-known, some of you will use physical attribute names, some of you a combination of both. Eventually, if you want to move a role and task from an existing solution into the new solution, a mapping will have to be done in order to map between that well-known you have in your original system and the well-known we introduce in the new system. And that's exactly what the Migration Express is here to do. It will allow you to connect from your old environment, read information, and allow you to do mapping against the new system. And it will allow you to migrate your user store, your provisioning directory, which include the endpoint, association, account template, all the things you need to do to run a provisioning, and of course the roles and tasks. Again, Migration Express is just for Identity Manager. For identity governance, migration is much easier. It's covered in our upgrade migration guide. It's basically just allow the virtual appliance to go and read information from an old database, do the on-premise upgrade, and you're ready to go. Identity Portal, it's an export and import kind of solution based on an upgrade path we're going to cover in a few slides. So that's a tool, as I said, this is a tool that's already been worked. It's a closed beta. We do have some customers using it right now in a closed beta. Hopefully in the future we'll be able to expand the beta a little bit more into the market and allow other customers to go in and use it. And that's the goal, for us to make it easier for you to migrate from your standalone to the virtual appliance. This is kind of mock-ups how the solution looks like. You can see you connect to the old system and the new system. So on the left side, this is the mapping from your old system. On the right side, you have the mapping for the new system. You click a button, the system goes in, read information from the old system, and write information back into the new system. Let's go back to a little bit more things that we introduced in the last few versions, especially on 14.2, just to give you a little bit of what's new in the world of the Identity Suite. We do have new connectors. We have AWS connectors, so you can manage your own AWS deployment from the Identity Manager. We support now multi-domain in hybrid mode in the Office 365 connector. One of the major enhancements we made for our existing Active Directory is the fact that you will not need to use the old certificate way, where you have to kind of figure out which certificate your Active Directory is using, is install it on the C++ connector server and try to find out to make sure it's working. No, we find another solution using SASL. Microsoft API, so you don't need to have this old certificate. You still have the underlined requirement to run a C++ connector server on the domain, the Active Directory, or the forest the Active Directory reside, but you don't go through this all loops and craziness of the certificate. We have a very tight integration with Privileged Access Manager, PAM. We now support version 3 and 3.1. As I said, one of the major keys we do is the performance enhancement, and not just making sure that the basic configuration items of the performance tuning guide are being implemented as part of the installer, but also look inside the code and see what can we make and change in our solution to make your life easier. So for example, task execution performance is much more optimized, and this is an ongoing work. So every time we release new version of the solution, you're going to see more and more improvement in that aspect. We now allow you to go and archive your identity governance, a feature that was exist in Identity Manager for years. Now we have this in Identity Governance. So for your cost perspective of how much disk space you need to hold, you now can distribute the load and reduce the cost of actually having the governance, identity governance running for a long time. We actually have an access request enhancement for Identity Portal. In the old days, we were very much depending on tools call back to Identity Manager. We implement our own API layer that now the Identity Portal can use, so meaning that access requests themselves are much faster on the new version. And one point that for those of you using the solution for a long time is that we know that we used to have a problem with the capture snapshot. It will either go for years without working or just took a long time to complete. We actually remapped the all snapshot method, and we are now collecting the snapshot only for the data that we actually need for the report, which means that the time it takes to collect that information went down 2 minutes even. So that's a huge performance input for those of you using our report server. Other new features we introduced is now you can use forgotten password in providing you for one-time password using SMS delivery methods. We actually went in and make sure that all our third-party tools, whether it's the client tools library or the PDI, are running the latest code branch to mitigate some security risk in the market. And a nice feature we introduced for Identity Portal, when you now request access, the requests are being done sequentially instead of randomized number that we had until now. All right. So let's talk. So now this is a very long introduction. So let's talk about a little bit about what type of upgrade enhancement we put in place, because this is why we're here to talk. So first of all, one of the things that was, for me as a service consultant, was like the very painful thing to do is to actually try to retain customization that you had. So for example, let's say and I'm talking about only quote-unquote legal customization, meaning either resource bundles or even a custom UI skin, everything that is legal we support. And the problem was that every time you did an upgrade, depending on which application server you're running, in some instances, those customization, you had to go and put them back into the solution. So one of the major features we did is that regardless of your application servers, of course virtual appliance as well, if you had a customization in place, if you have resource bundle, UI, whatever it's legal, and you run the upgrade, those customization will already be there once you finish. So you now you don't need to do this extra step now to, for example, let's talk about WebSphere, right? You deploy on WebSphere, you do the upgrade, you finish the upgrade, you have to grab the AR back from the WebSphere server, unpack it, put back your customization, jar file, whatever you need to do, pack it back to AAR, go back to WebSphere console, deploy. This all long steps are like very much documented, but it's kind of annoying. So we said, why we don't want to annoy you, so let's make this better. So the installer, the upgrade installer, now takes care of everything. So you have a customization, you move from 14.1 or whatever version, by the way, 12.6.6. You went from 12.6.6 to 14.2. The customization is still there. So, and that's for me, it's something that is very important. Another enhancement for upgrade is I mentioned this in the beginning. We now have a backup utility inside the solution that allows you to back up your environment. It's more on the virtual appliance side, but for the standalone, we actually introduced a specialized tool for the export as part of the tools directory that allows you using a sample file or answer file to go and export specific object directly from the identity manager. So instead of taking the entire roles XML from the solution, you go and say, I need this stuff, this screen, this PX, this whatever. You give it to the tool, and the tool take care of for you, again, in order to improve your moving between one environment to another. All right. So let's talk about what type of upgrade path we have today. So why upgrade? sounds simple enough questions, but sometimes, this is a question I'm being asked all day. So why upgrade? So first of all, get access to the latest product feature and fix it. While we do fix some of our older product line, depending if it's a critical fix or security, the latest product features will always going to be on the latest version. So if you want, for example, you were struggling with Active Directory Connector for so long and you want to benefit from the new Active Directory Connector, you go and upgrade. If you have an AWS and you have a problem statement that says, I need to manage my AWS through an access request system, you now have the feature to do that. The other aspect of it is that as we move ahead with one platform to one version to another, we are also updating our platform support metrics. So for example, if you're running a 12.6.4, running on 2008 R2 Windows, which is already kind of the extended support part, excuse me, we certify the latest version of operating system, whether it's Red Hat 7, whether it's Windows 2016, Oracle 12c R2, WebLogic, and all this latest. So if you have your own internal mechanism that say you have to run your infrastructure on the latest and greatest, this is something that you want to be able to support, and this is only supported in the new version. And of course, better support. It's much easier for us to provide you support on the latest version because it's still kind of fresh in our mind, and for our support organization to reproduce it's much easier. I see a question that Eric Laney just said. Yes, Eric, if you're moving from a 12.6, any version that is supported for upgrade, which is 12.5.7 and above, the installer for 14.2 will retain everything that you have customized in your solution. So hopefully I answered the question. All right, so when we're talking about upgrade path for the Identity Suite, we have two types of upgrade paths. One is for the virtual appliance. Again, this is our recommended solution. We see a return on investment and total cost of ownership improvement for you because you don't need to worry about the third-party infrastructure costs. You don't need to worry about the incurring cost you have for your IT department, how much it's costing you to go and engage a web engineer to make that upgrade or everything. It's all controlled by you. And of course, it's easy. Once you upgrade from one version to another, it's minutes. That doesn't take weeks or months to make it work. But we still want to be able to improve the standalone. So if you're running a standalone, you will still support it. You still can upgrade. We support officially for any version to any version. Exception is the Identity Portal. We'll talk about this in a moment. So if you're running any version for Identity Manager, 12.5, 7, hopefully you're not, and above it, basically every 64-bit version of the Identity Manager, you can upgrade from one version to another. There are some restrictions specifically around deprecated features and endpoint that are all in our release notes. And Identity Governance, same thing, 12.5, I think 12.5.4 or something like that. It's all in our documentation that you can go and upgrade, and you just run the upgrade and you're ready to roll. But because you're running your own infrastructure items, whether it's database, application server, operating system, it's up to you to make sure that you first set up that application server, database operating system to support our platform support metrics. So for example, I'll give you the most far-fetched scenario. If you're still for some reason running a 2003 Windows, for some reason, and you want to go install 14, that will never work. You have to install or set up a 2012 or 2 Windows just to make sure that you can support. So let's talk about prerequisites. So you decide to upgrade. You go from 12.6, you want to go to 14.2. What do you need to do? There's a prerequisite. So first of all, go read our release notes. As I mentioned before, we might have some deprecated features. We might have some deprecated changes, things that work in the old version and now needs to be set up in the new version, whether it's a platform support metrics changes, whether it's just connectors or anything else that makes sure. So just go ahead and read this. We're actually investing quite a bit in our release notes and upgrade guides to make sure that's easier and much more self-service kind of scenario to help you do that. If you have a missing information, open a support case. If you have a services contact you work with, if you have someone you can talk to, go and open a question. Go to our communities. Ask those questions. Make sure you understand what is required for you to upgrade. And then, of course, you have access to it. Download the software, understand how the software looks like. So, for example, if you were using Solaris in the 12.6, that's no longer supported. You have to move to Windows or Linux. Just make sure you download the right version. So, one of the things we say is that before you even start doing the upgrade, make sure that your current solution is working. I know it might be a little bit rude to ask, or might be a rude request to do, but so many times when I went in and did the upgrade, I found out something that was stopped working and after the upgrade, but no one was able to convince me it didn't work before. So for you to make sure that you work in the right order, you make a full regression test on your current production environment, because that's what is working right now. This is the use cases you have right now. The expectation that everything you have in production is working. QA, kind of the same. There we might have other use cases, but you want to make sure that you have a full list of what needs to happen, how production needs to look like, every use case, how the flow should work before you go and do the upgrade. And this is a key to make sure that you have success. So once you have the regression testing and you have your test plan in place, you want to identify key custom components. Not because we're not going to move them, just because you might need to go and recompile them if you move from one Java version to another, if you switch application server. Sometimes if you use a Rhino JavaScript in the current solution, if you went from Java 1.6, the Rhino code will need to be a little bit changed. Maybe the class got deprecated. Just identify those solutions. We will move the custom code. We just need to make sure you identify if something worked out to fix it. And if you have a specific hotfix, I'm not talking about community patch, anything that is specifically was built for you, or even something you know that you use in one of the fixes for the version you're using, make sure you document this. Because once you upgrade, you want to make sure that you will not experience the same problem. Once you finish this list, you want to prepare your infrastructure, right? You want to identify the hardware and software component that needs to be upgraded. Whether it's going to be side-by-side upgrade or on-premise upgrade. Sometimes you can do that, sometimes you cannot do that. I know the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, if I need to upgrade my operating system and database, I'm just going to set up a brand new infrastructure on the side. That's fine. You just need to identify this. And make sure you work with IT organization. Get your champions in place. Get your IT key person, stakeholders in place to make sure that you help you move things along, because we all know that sometimes you work in the corporate area, sometimes things get stuck. So you want to have the person that allows you to go and open the doors for you. And most importantly, make sure your backup is working, because some things can happen. And if you do an upgrade and it fails, you want to be able to roll back. And sometimes the only way to do rollback is backup and restore. So rollback, right? As I said, validate your backup and restore options, whether it's going to be snapshot or database backup, file system backup, anything, any backup solution you guys can think about. Identify the downtime, because you're going to say, you know what, virtual appliance can take a night, and standalone might take longer. You might want to take another day or weekend to make sure that you identify this. You document this. You make sure you document and document and document, so you can do this when you can give it to your grandmother, and she can do this on her own. Document it. The documentation is key. And practice, and practice again on the low environment. You want to be able to go into this production environment upgrade, and you do this in one go over one night after you've been doing this in the previous environment. You understand the key problems. You know what to expect. Just do the practice. This is the key. This is something I'm really asking everyone to do. So I tried to, as I said, this is a very high level, so I tried to go and show you the difference between how an upgrade process between the virtual appliance and standalone looks like. So this is the virtual appliance part, right? The steps by step, what needs to be done in order to upgrade. So let's go really fast on what's going on here. So you back up your database with all the information. You take a snapshot, because this is a virtual solution. If you have AWS, it's a little bit other tricky. We can talk about this offline. You download the upgrade package for the virtual appliance. You upload it to the virtual machine. Then you go and upgrade your external connector server OS for virtual appliance. The connector servers, specifically if you need a C++ one still running on Windows. So you go, there's an upgrade package for that. You run and upgrade. You might need to upgrade your operating system on the connector server. If your virtual appliance, probably not. But if you do the upgrade as well. And upgrade the connector server. Make sure your database is supported. So if you start your virtual appliance in the Oracle 11G area, you want mine to go and upgrade to 12 CR2, right? Once you finish that infrastructure upgrade and migration, you already uploaded the upgrade package to the virtual machine. You run the command, system take care of everything. You do the assess, fix, and restart kind of loop that goes and say, okay, I upgraded. Let's see if they fix the problem I was trying to upgrade. Let's see if I can utilize the feature. Go through your testing cycle, the documentation, make sure everything is working. Now, item in blue are items that from our roadmap perspective, we're thinking about maybe we'll not need to do that in the future. So those are like the Windows type component, right? The database is still a third-party component that you still need to have to use. Again, virtual appliance, there's no installer, there's no script, there's no training. You just upload the package, you run the upgrade script, and you're done. You can upgrade from any version to any version. Again, even for Identity Portal, because Identity Portal, again, we'll talk about this in a moment. If you're running a pre-14 version, you have to go for a tail upgrade of 12, let's say 1.6.2, 14, 14.1, 14.2. So even though we made some changes, you still have to go through this process. For virtual appliance, we don't care which version. If you're running a 14.0 virtual appliance and you download 14.2, 14.3 upgrade package, you're going to run it the latest. We're going to take care of it for you. And again, every component in the virtual appliance will be upgraded automatically. We're not telling you, you know what, we just did. You have to run this command to go and upgrade Identity Manager, or this command to go and identity governance. No, you run one command, we take care of everything. And again, up and running in minutes. If you have to do a rollback, you restore your database from backup, you revert to your snapshot. If you need it, you restore any data stores, for example, directory or file system, or even in specific items, not necessarily relevant to a full major upgrade, there's a rollback command. So if you upgrade, for example, from 14.2 to 14.2 CR1, or CP5 or CP3, if not something doesn't work, you have a rollback command inside the virtual appliance that allows you to go and go back to your virtual previous version. For migration, can you migrate to the virtual appliance? That's a very difficult question to answer. Why? Because for us, because we aligned you, we gave you the information on how the virtual appliance looks like. This is a directory type infrastructure. So if you're running database, you can upgrade if you're licensed to, but it's going to make your migration a little bit more complicated. So I would say we want everyone to migrate, and we want to make sure that we have the right solution to give you. If you are running a version that's going to be end of service in October, and you're thinking about migration, and you have to weigh between migration to the virtual appliance versus just running a support version, I will tell you, I will prefer you running on a supported version and not just getting into that line where you have to go and be on extended support. There is an effort involved in the migration to virtual appliance, depending how much complicated your solution is. As I said, we're trying to build a solution in the Migration Express to alleviate that. But there is going to be some effort needs to be done. From our perspective, that is a one-time effort. You need to do one time to migrate your standalone to the virtual appliance, and then you get a return on investment very fast in the next upgrade. Migration methodology for the virtual appliance is side by side. There's no way to go around it. And once the migration is over, how can I be sure that all my previous logic will work? Again, run your assessment testing, make sure you run all the test cases, make sure that everything is running. From going from a standalone to virtual appliance, you might need to be investing a little bit more in this old testing assessment and make sure everything is working, versus once you on the virtual appliance, it's kind of more of feature-based, say, okay, this feature is still working. I don't need to jump through loops to make sure it's working. So standalone, a little more complicated. You now have a little bit more infrastructure items that need to take care of. If it's the operating system, the application server, the database. If you're running a very, very old version, a 12.6 branch, and you're probably going to have to do side-by-side upgrade where you're going to set up everything new. You're going to have to install a brand new installation of the solution, and then do the data migration. Let's take the easy path. Let's say you're running from 14.1 to 14.2. Again, you download the installers, installer plural, because you have different components. If the application itself, it's Identity Manager, Identity Governance, Identity Portal, you have to run the installers separately on each component. You have the subcomponent, for example, the connector servers or the provision directory, even the CA directory running behind the scene. You have to run a lot of manual work to make it work. So, and when you look at the item under the gray box, this is this type of third-party component that you really don't have a choice to go in and upgrade, because there's while some solution you can technically upgrade the operating system like Windows to one version to another. That's not usually what you do in the IT infrastructure. You're basically going to be setting up a brand new server. So you have to do this mapping before, and this is going to be happening over and over again over time, because that's the nature of the business. That's why we recommend moving into the virtual appliance. Other than that, once you upgrade, you run the application, you go through the motion of test, assess, fix, rollback, and so on. Rollback, I'll cover in a moment, but let's talk about standalone upgrade. Can you upgrade from any version to any version? Yes, 12.5, 7, IDM, 12.5, or Identity Governance 64-bit version of the solution. You can upgrade. Identity Portal, it's a little bit trickier if you're moving from the 1.6 version. Let's say you're running 1.60, you will have to go through a tail upgrade of 1.60 to 1.61, 1.62. Once you get to 14, then you can jump to 14.2. So that's in our documentation. You can automate it. We support answer files, so you can definitely do that. But you also need special access to the infrastructure and third-party dependency, like your web engineer teams and Unix team and other teams that needs to be involved. Rollback, very similar to virtual appliance. You have to restore from backup. It's the database, it's the snapshot if you have to, if you need to, directory restores, and also in a case where it's moving from old infrastructure to new infrastructure, you might need to go and switch back the communication to work on the old infrastructure. So there's quite a bit of preparation and planning that has to be happening before you can go and do the upgrade and the standalone. So which version I should upgrade to? So that's where I always tell you. So it all depends where you are in the solution. If your solution is the infrastructure solution is in our latest version PSM, Platform Support Metrics, just go ahead and upgrade to the latest version, and make sure you upgrade and you add any more community patch on top of it. If you're running a version of that is going to be end of service in October, let's say around 12.6.6. and your infrastructure still will not be supporting the 14.2 or 14 or any one of those, but you still want to be able to get support in the next few months until you be able to upgrade while you set up your new infrastructure, a recommendation, go and upgrade to 12.6.8. 12.6.8 end of service is in April, right? You can upgrade, support the same platform support metrics with in most cases, 99% of the cases. You can just run the latest version. We just released the community release 2 for 12.6, like a mini service pack for it. So you're running the latest code branch, you have all the security and mitigation going on in place, and you still get support until April of next year. And then during that time, you can go and work on upgrading migration for the latest version. And make sure that you do that, because I want you guys to keep getting the support you deserve. Is my existing infrastructure listed in the platform support metrics for the version I choose? Yes, every version has its own platform support metrics, so make sure you compare that. Upgrade methodology, if the infrastructure is supported and you have a good rollback solution, go do just upgrade on top of what you already have. Again, platform needs to be supported. If not, just do side by side. Once the upgrade is over, I can be sure that all my previous logic will work. We invested quite heavily in making sure that when you move into the latest version, things that were working before will keep working, with some exception where we deprecated features, but that's more moving between the 12.6 code branch into the 14 code branch. All right, that's all I have. I saw one question from Eric, and I hope I answered it right. Just if you have more questions, this is the time. If you want to unmute your line, you can do that as well, and ask it directly. And if not, that's it. So,
yeah, folks, if you have an audio question, #6 will unmute your phone line. Again, #6 will unmute your phone line for an audio question. Otherwise, You're welcome to use the Q&A. Just be sure to ask the question of everyone so we see it. Well, Itamar, I'm not seeing any questions. Go ahead.
People might be typing, so I'll give you some homework, so to speak, for everyone who's on the call. So first of all, I want to make sure that everyone is aware that we have a very vibrant communities going on for the product. We have ourselves a product manager, the engineering lead, support lead, everyone who's involved with the product on that community is answering answers every day for a specific question. This doesn't work. How can I do this? How can I do that? I'm really hope you guys using our communities. We also have roadmaps on a regular cadence, which I highly recommend that you join. You can register to them through the address of ca.com/roadmap. We have a regular cadence for North America and the other regions, so Europe and APJ. And of course, make sure if you have any more questions that needs to be answered, you can open a support case. You can reach out to your champions or account management. The account manager will be, if there's something specifically critical, just make sure that you reach out to them and make sure that you get the answer you need. All right, so I see a question. The fixed strategy document you linked to describe the types of update, but does not mention a schedule. Is there a set of delivery schedule for update, or is on a needed basis? That's a great question. So what we are trying to do, and you know, we don't want to release service pack or community patches with one fix, right, or two fixes. We want to give value for those fixes, right? So we split this in two. So one, for the virtual appliance, for example, we do have a daily fix that process that goes for the operating system. So if you're running a virtual appliance and you need an operating system fix for the virtual appliance, you can go on a daily basis and see if we release new version. For the point products, we want to go and accumulate kind of critical mass of fixes to make sure there's value for them, right? Of course, if there is something wrong and you have a bug that you need to be fixed, there's still going to be the hotfix method. And again, all those hotfix will be rolled into the community patch. So no, there's no specific cadence or schedule we do. But as soon as we get enough mass of fixes that we think that is good enough for release, we're going to release them. We're not waiting. This is very much things that we want to make sure that you're running and you get the latest access to the latest patch without required to wait. Hope I answered the question. Any more questions? Okay. Again, you can, if you have more questions or go through the communities, I'm there. Reach out to your support engineers. They know how to find me. Go to the account manager. They know how to find us. If you know my email, directly contact me. Fine, no problem. I'm here to help. And again, I want to thank every one of you for listening. Again, take into consideration the end of service date. Make sure if you get those emails from us, from support. If you don't, open a support case and make sure that your email is in on this distribution list. We don't just release end of service, we release other updates every time there's a new community patch or every time there's a new version coming out or even this community activity. We have a distribution list and we want to make sure you get those updates. So if you're not, please open a support case and make sure we fix this for you. And with that, I want to again thank you for everyone and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.